Hey, 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 welcome to LinkedIn Live Lunch Hour. This is Michael Goldberg. I know. I've started 25 minutes later, but I had to accommodate my schedule for my great guest today. That's Billy Samoa Selby. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Michael? Excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity and looking forward to our conversation, my friend.
Absolutely. So, Billy and I have been talking for probably the last, I'd say, what, 3 or 4 weeks, Billy, is when we first kind of connected.
Yeah, something like
Um,
that.
I was trying to remember how we got connected. I don't know if it was through Adam Posner or if it was just maybe I had found a post of yours. You had popped into my algorithm
I know it wasn't
unexpectedly.
Adam because you're the one who told me about Adam. And
That's right.
so I connected with him after you mentioned some of his posts. So it wasn't through him, but we'll have to go back in the archives and do a forensics to find out how we first met.
But it is, I mean, that's the cool magic of LinkedIn, right? You just, somebody you don't know that actually has something good to say and has great posts out there like you do, that's kind of the magic of LinkedIn, I guess. I kind of like that aspect of it, but as we'll go into here, we'll talk about the algorithm and some other stuff. And so you were telling me before we hopped on the air, you just completed a presentation on using LinkedIn. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did a presentation for the networking group, Bruin Professionals, which is a UCLA alumni networking group. And really, they just wanted an overview on how to leverage LinkedIn better. So it's called Unleashing the Power of LinkedIn. And I first talk about the platform LinkedIn and why it is the platform that it is and why it's a great place to invest your time. And then I talked about how you build a targeted network as opposed to a blind network. And then I talked about the importance of the algorithm and understanding how that works. And then I talked about how to create compelling content. So, and I shared some of the tools and resources that I use. And so it was fun. I really enjoyed doing it and would love to share any bits of that you think would be valuable for your audience.
Absolutely. So, well, before we kind of jump into the questions, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background of the Billy story? Let's hear it.
Yeah, happy to. I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up here, but I was born on an American Samoa. So you might notice my middle name is Samoa. It's because I was born to hippie parents, and they decided to name me after the place I was born, which is a small island in the South Pacific. Career professionally in the learning and development space, most recently at Tesla. And prior to that, I was at Solar City. Prior to that, I was with another solar company. And prior to that, I actually was in the film business. So made a feature film, and everything that goes into that was incredible and definitely laid the groundwork for my professional career. But after 7 years of making the movie and ultimately getting distribution, I decided I probably should look at something that would provide more career opportunity and long-term growth. So I stumbled into the renewable space, and as things progressed, I sort of moved up the rankings at the companies I worked for. At Tesla, I led global sales training and product training. That was my most recent role. And sort of the through line of my life is I love creating experiences. I love doing things that will give people a smile on their face and make them walk away saying, wow, I can't believe that just happened, or I can't believe how cool that was. That inspires me and makes me happy.
That's awesome, man. I remember your post the other day about, you had spent, was it, you said 14 years with Tesla? Is that right?
So I wasn't, no, it was 10 years
Or
in the renewable space, but not 10 years with Tesla. So I was four years Solar City
4
and
years?
Tesla.
Mhm.
And so at Solar City, my first role was leading internal communications, and then I got into sales training. But with internal communications, I did a lot of things like this, like we created Solar City TV, where we would do a weekly broadcast. And so I love getting my hands on projects where I could be creative. But you had a question in there, so fire away.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, you had a great career. I just liked your post the other day. We all were talking about job change and that you kind of felt that when you left Tesla, not in a bad way, but you felt, I guess they felt that you had kind of reached Was it you that reached your peak, or was it them that said that you feel you reached your peak with this?
Well, yeah, great question. So, like any corporate role, there's always a chance that your role is viewed as either unnecessary or just you can eliminate it. And so I moved up. I had 8 promotions in 10 years. And so, uh, I was afforded some really incredible just opportunities. Leading sales training at Solar City, there's 7,000 salespeople. That was an amazing opportunity. And then getting an opportunity to go to Tesla, my first role there was leading onboarding. So what that was is I had a chance to take the new hire experience and turn it on its head and create that wow experience that I was just talking about. So we created Launch, which is the onboarding experience for somebody that starts at Tesla. And then I was promoted to the head of global sales training and product training. And so I had a team in Asia, a team in North America, and a team in Europe. And so ultimately what was decided is they don't need a global leader to oversee those markets. They'd rather just have people in each of those markets. And so I had a choice really on, do I want to stay in corporate? Do I want to try to reinvent myself and find something else either at Tesla or another corporation? Or do I want to go out on my own and see what the world can offer me as an entrepreneur? And so I decided to start Insight Media, which is the company that I am currently running. And I started a podcast. I've become very active on LinkedIn, and I'm really getting sort of the beginning of my non-corporate career started. So it's only been about a year since I've really started this new thing. And so, but I love it. I mean, yeah, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm challenged, all the things that go into it, right? It's never a smooth, linear path where it's just like easy. But if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And so I just love that I can be uncomfortable all the time and learn things about myself and learn ways to do things that I probably wouldn't have done if I were in a more comfortable situation, which would be a corporate level job.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you hit on the big word, comfort, right? I agree. I mean, I set off on my own a few years ago, 3 years ago now, almost 3 years ago, and have been uncomfortable ever since. But that's what's been the fun of it, is just being uncomfortable and knowing that we're here for a certain time, and you might as well take advantage of that. And so you've been able to successfully do it and helping your clients become better at what they do, especially on LinkedIn. And, I think that's just an amazing story to share. And that a lot of people, even now, it's going to be interesting to see how many people are going to start to feel uncomfortable, and people are going to just go, we don't know when this pandemic's ending, because, we're starting to see a spike everywhere again. Maybe I should just go into my business myself. Do you think you'll see more people try to do their own thing, or do you think people are still going to play it safe? What's your thought?
It's a great point. And I would venture to guess that absolutely people will take this opportunity and run with it. Why not? I mean, if you're left without a job, either you're certain that the job is not going to be there when everything sort of starts to go back to normal, if there is a normal, or you just use this as an opportunity to have a new chapter start. And so I would venture to guess that my story, your story, is not unique. Yeah, it happened 3 years ago for you, a year ago for me, and it's happening right now for millions of people. And so I would say 100% that you're going to see new businesses form over the upcoming weeks, months, and year, because of the fact that people are just left without what they were used to. And it's sort of like this gift that they're given, because nothing against corporations. Like we need corporations, we need companies to exist, but I don't think everyone wants to be a part of a corporation. And so if they are given this gift to start something on their own and they run with it, the only thing separating somebody from success and failure is tenacity and grit and the uncompromising attitude that they will make themselves successful. It doesn't mean failure doesn't exist. It just means that they're going to do whatever it takes to get to where they want to go. And the destination, that is not what we should be thinking about. We really should be thinking about the journey, the journey that we're on. And so every day is that journey. And that's where we should relish each and every single day and appreciate the moment that we live in, because as you alluded to, right, our time is finite. We only have so much. And so we might as well treat every moment as a gift. And this, as I've said, is a gift to anyone that is left kind of wondering what next. Well, maybe your what next is something that you can figure out on your own. You don't need to go work for another company.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that you and I have been able to figure it out. The key question is and it kind of leads us into our discussion today about LinkedIn's easiest. If you're going to start kind of just to start by not even forming your own business yet, but start putting yourself out there, kind of sharing your ideas. I mean, LinkedIn is probably the easiest place to start, right? I mean, Facebook, Instagram, they all have their places on the social media scale, but not for if you're thinking about making a leap. Do you agree with that?
Well, here's what I'll say. And so I'll kind of give some of the points that I shared on my presentation earlier today. And when you think about, most people have a Facebook account, many people have an Instagram account, a lot of people have a Twitter account. When you think about those platforms, the vast majority of active users, meaning people that use the platform actively, they are posting content, they're adding pictures, they're tweeting. Now, where LinkedIn is different is there are 100 million active users and only 3 million of them are posting content on a weekly basis. LinkedIn gets 9 billion impressions each week. So 3 million people posting content, they're getting 9 billion impressions. So when you think about the vastness of what LinkedIn provides, it's a simple numbers game. There's a content deficit relative to the number of people on the platform. So for anyone taking it seriously, that's posting content on a regular basis, they are putting themselves in a great position to grow their network and reach an audience through organic, and which is free traffic. The last point I'll mention is LinkedIn has 690 million total users right now, but their roadmap is going to take them to 3 billion active users. So they're just getting started, right? 3 billion active users, that's almost half the world's population. And so, yes, it's the best opportunity far and away. And I'm not alone in thinking this. When you do any amount of study, I mean, any B2B marketer, anyone that's doing any kind of content marketing, LinkedIn is the platform of choice, and for good reason, which is everything that I've just mentioned.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. One of the things we talk about is how active you have to be from your. And I kind of know the answer to this, but I want to ask and I want to share with the audience what's your recommendation on how active you should be on LinkedIn on a weekly basis if you really kind of want to start getting into it and diving in and being a contributor?
It's a fair and valid question. And I think it really partially depends on your commitment level and ability to spend time. So for me, I'm probably being more aggressive than maybe somebody that doesn't have the, frankly, time to spend, a significant amount of it on LinkedIn. And so I'm mindful that professionals, people that have a normal day-to-day job, they're not going to be able to spend as much time. So what matters not to me is the amount of time, it's how consistent you are overall. So if you're saying you're going to put half an hour a day, be consistent with a half an hour a day. If it's an hour a day, be consistent with an hour a day. And so one of the things to really think about as you build your network is remembering that if you're going to be posting content on a consistent basis, you want people to actually look at your content. Otherwise, what's the point of posting it? And so, I'm happy to share some of my thoughts on that subject. But one of the most significant things is remembering that you are posting so other people will benefit. Don't post just to promote yourself. And I think this is a big common mistake. And one of the mistakes that I made early on is I was promoting my podcast, but people become immune to that after a while. It's an advertisement. And so the less you come across as an advertisement and the more you come across as somebody who's actually providing value, the more people want to engage in the content you're putting out there. And so consistency matters, but even more important than consistency is the mindset that you have walking in to your strategy or LinkedIn strategy. The more you give, the more you will get back in the long term. If you have a getter's mindset where you're just thinking about what you're getting, chances are you're going to be left feeling like, oh, the algorithm doesn't work, or I don't know why nothing's working. You're going to get frustrated and you're going to fizzle out. Conversely, if you focus on how can I give value to the community on LinkedIn? What expertise do I have that I can impart? What insights have I learned or knowledge do I have that I could share with other people? And the more you're able to do this on a regular basis, people will begin to think, okay, this person provides valuable content on a consistent basis. And therefore, they'll want to follow your content. They'll want to connect with you. They'll want to engage with your content and all the things that you want to help make sure that, you have high activity.
Yeah. So, do you agree with the with the way this works, that it takes a year or two to really get that respect and engagement from the people that you're connecting to? Or should we not be worrying about, I got this many likes, I got this many comments, I got this much engagement, I made this much impressions? Right. Should we be worried about that at all, especially if you're starting out? I mean, I know a lot of people like to compare themselves to other. I've done it before. You've done it before. We've all done it, right? 100%. So, right. So, what's your thoughts there? Like, how do we get over that?
I love this question, and there's a few parts to it. So the first thing I'll say is we all compare ourselves to other people. It's human nature. Anybody that says they don't, if you're right, I'm impressed. Chances are you're either not self-aware enough to realize or you're not admitting it. So it's natural to do that. As far as the numbers, a lot of people call those vanity metrics, and they're vanity metrics if you only look at them to boost your own ego or self-esteem. But what they really are is leading indicators that show you, are people engaging with what you're putting out there, and therefore more likely to look at your profile, more likely to want to connect with you or follow you, and then most importantly, want to engage with you and start a conversation. The first part of your question talks about the length of time, and I think that will be different for each person. I only really became active on LinkedIn earlier this year, and my following has doubled in less than 6 months. So I actually don't think it needs to take a year. I think it really is a matter of how quickly can you form a tribe. And what I mean by that is how quickly can you find people on the platform that you like, that you can develop and cultivate a relationship with, so that they also like you, that they get to know you and they trust you, right? The know, like, trust adage, it's there for a reason. It's the number one way people will want to be around you. And just because you're not there physically doesn't mean that you're not there in a different way, which is, this is a giant networking event. And instead of it being a giant networking event that you go to, it comes to you. And instead of it being a networking event that's maybe in your neighborhood, it's a global networking event. And instead of it being from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., it's 24/7. And you could talk to literally anybody. I mean, most every executive or decision maker on the planet is on LinkedIn. Authors, thought leaders. I mean, it's crazy. And so when you think about all those things, it's mind-boggling to think that within moments, I could send a note to one of the most people that I admire more, one of the people I admire more than anyone, right? And so that is a really compelling thing to remember. And so, going back to your question a bit, is I think it's all relative to how much time you put in. And when you're putting in the time, it's not just about, oh, am I getting engagement? Am I getting engagement? You also got to think, am I building relationships? Am I building relationships? Am I building relationships? So yeah, it could take a year. It could take 2 years. Or in my case, I got started in the platform 2007, right? But I didn't take it seriously until 2020. And so 13 years have passed. I mean, I've been married less time than I've been on LinkedIn, and marriage took a while to figure out too. So I shouldn't get too hard on myself. Point being is, it took 13 years for me to start taking it seriously. So I think once somebody starts to take it seriously, they can then very quickly actually start to see traction. I have several coaching clients that I'm working with that have built tribes relatively quickly. And so, we're going to talk about the algorithm in a minute, but I think when you understand how the algorithm works and you understand why it works in the way it does, you could then reverse engineer how to effectively leverage the algorithm to your advantage instead of using it as an excuse for why you're not getting engagement or why your posts aren't getting views. It's never the algorithm's fault. It's always something that you could be doing differently. And so, yeah, it changes, but don't place blame on something that you don't control. Instead, navigate to where you can leverage it to your benefit.
Yeah, and I really like the advice when you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago. Don't advertise. I really liked your advice. Don't advertise about your upcoming LinkedIn lives. Wait, just go live, and if people are going to be interested, people are going to tune in. So on average, we've had about I can't tell because my phone died today, so I can't look on my phone to see how many people are watching live on LinkedIn. So let me know if you're watching on live at LinkedIn, because or would like to donate money to a phone. I'm kidding. But the one advice you got me was don't stay away from the, hey, I'll be doing a LinkedIn live with Billy Samoa Selby, or I'll be doing job seeker journeys with this person. Just go live with it. And if you're there for the folks consistently, every other week, for this every week at 11 o'clock. Now we started late because we needed to meet with your schedule. It's, that to me is the best way to do it. And so asking more open-ended questions, I guess, what are some of the tips before we get into algorithm that you would recommend on how you've been able to generate content?
Okay. Yeah. So,
well, in terms of engagement and your tribe, how to build your tribe.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, perfect. Let me talk about the self-promotion piece, because I think it's important to note that I don't advise to never do that, but I think use the 80-20 rule. If 80% of the time you're providing valuable content that will benefit the other people, then 20% of the time you can do things that are going to help promote your brand, your company, your products, things of that nature. But when you do that, also provide value. So for example, if I post about my podcast, I shouldn't just post about my podcast and say, listen to my podcast. I should talk about something within the podcast that will be of value to the listener and create a post that really is insightful and gives them some takeaways, give them some nuggets. People are always wondering the WIFM, right? What's in it for me? And so you should be maniacal about trying to find things that are going to plant wisdom into other people. And so it could be an insight, it could be a tip, it could be knowledge. Any of those things work. When you create posts, it must have that element. And so you asked about my tribe. And so I'll share 3 steps to build a tribe. And so there's 690 million people on the platform. 690 million people. That's a lot of people. If you go blind and just start connecting with people blindly, people will connect back and you'll build a network. But is it a tribe? And the answer to that is likely no. And so what I suggest doing is step 1, find a you. What I mean by that is who on this platform is like you. Maybe they have a similar career as you. Maybe they are somebody that you admire for some reason, but chances are they are somewhat related to you in that you like what they talk about. Now, where they're different from you is that they're further along than you on LinkedIn. Maybe they have a bigger following, their posts get more engagement, things of that nature. And so when you do that, find that spend some time to find out who that person is. Once you found that person, you're going to go to step 2. Step 2 is add value. Add value to that community. If that person posts on a daily basis, you should make comments on that person's posts. And not just like a thumbs up or a nice post. Actually put something that is valuable to the conversation.
And it continues it, right? It continues the conversation.
Exactly. And so as you make comments on your used posts, all of a sudden people are going to see your comments and they might connect with you. That's great. Like, you want that to happen, but I wouldn't wait for that. You can also be very proactive. So once you found your you can begin connecting with the people that are posting comments on that person's posts. And so, for example, let's say that you go to you make a comment. I say, Michael, thanks a lot. Or Michael, I saw your comment on Mark's posts. I loved your post about his post about podcasting. I love what you wrote. I would love to connect if you're open to it. And then I would say a little bit about me and about what I do. And I would send that personalized invite. So when you send that personalized invite, it's really key to remember that you're sending it to somebody that is already engaged on LinkedIn. They're an active user. Not only are they an active user, but they're engaged in the type of content that you like, because this is the person that you like their content. And so you don't need to have just one you. You can have 3 or 4 or 5 yous, but find out who those people are and regularly comment on their posts, like their posts, and then send personalized invites to the people who are also commenting on their posts. And so when you do this, what this allows you to do over time is to begin to cultivate and build a connection and a network of people that like the same things as you. But don't stop there, because the key part of building a relationship is to get to know these people. So once you've connected, they've accepted your connection request, then you have a human interaction with them through direct message. This does not mean you send like a long 10-page thing about what you do. Send them a quick note.
Or your resume.
Yeah, or your resume, or like, what, don't have the getter's mindset, have the giver's mindset. So maybe you saw on their profile, like my profile says, I love ramen, right? And so maybe I've gotten people that say, oh, I love ramen too. And so we have a conversation about ramen, right? People want to relate to people. And so the more human you are, the better, right? It's easy to forget there's human being on the other end of that profile. And so the more human you are, the easier it's going to be to connect with folks. And so once you've connected with the right people and you've started these conversations, all of a sudden you start making posts that are similar to your used posts. Those people start commenting on them. So that's the recipe.
And that's a hell of a recipe. So and we're finally getting some hellos in the comments here. Hello to Raj Patel, Anna Morgan, Anton Coetzee, Mac Vassal. Thanks for tuning in. There's another one that says hello from Texas, so I can't see it because I don't have my phone, but it's okay. So now that we have kind of the outline of the recipe for successful engagement and really building your network and being a giver, not a getter, let's talk about the algorithm.
Yeah.
So I know I've had, and you kind of hinted to it already, that the algorithm all depends on really what I'm putting in on a daily basis. If I did a post about how to do how to conduct an effective job search, and there are 10 other people that have already done it before I do, I would assume that mine's going to be suppressed. Because there's already been enough content within that 24-hour period. Maybe I'm wrong. But give us some examples of how the algorithm helps and can hurt.
Yeah. Well, I first want to just give a shout out to all the people who have helped teach me about the algorithm. Andy Foote and I don't know if it's footy, but Andy has written some great articles on the LinkedIn algorithm. So I want to give him a lot of credit for synthesizing a lot of this information. But when you think about the algorithm in a nutshell, remember that your post is going to be given a quality score before anybody sees it. That's based on the image that you pick, the video that you pick, the text, and all of this is done just automatically by the algo. And then once they figured out, okay, this is a quality post, it's not a quality post, and then we'll send it out to a small group of your connections, of your followers. Maybe if you put a hashtag, it'll send it out to some of the people that are following that hashtag, if you're also following that hashtag, and it'll see, are people going to engage with this post? It will evaluate how engaging the post is based on that first test run. And then basically it's going to send back information to the algorithm, says, yes, this post is actually good. People are engaging in it. Or they're going to say, no, it's not good. People aren't engaging in it. And so think of it like a pinball machine. This is a great analogy. So when you think of a pinball machine, you use the levers to keep the ball up in the air and it bounces around. The levers and the things that make the pinball stay in play, those are the likes, those are the comments, those are the reshares. You want more activity on your post, especially in the first hour. I call it the power hour. The first hour is the critical time of whether or not your post is going to have the traction that you want. And so remember that when you make a comment, it also counts as activity. Now, does it count as much as somebody else making a comment? We don't know. The algo is a black box, but we do know that it helps. And so if somebody makes a comment on your post, comment back. And another person makes a comment back and reply back. And when you reply back, hey, maybe you ask them a question about their comment. So then they have to write another comment. This is creating that pinball effect where it keeps your post active. Now, once you've done all that, it's important to remember that likes are great, reshares are great, but comments are king. The more comments you get, the better. And so how do you get more comments? Well, you got to build that tribe. And so we've already talked about how to build the tribe. When you build the tribe, I have 20 people who I know will comment on almost every post that I make. And so the bigger you build that tribe, the more instant comments you're going to get. And so there are a few other key factors that I want to share about the algo. Number one, and that you just kind of commented on this a little bit, is pace yourself. I see people posting and then posting again and then posting again, back to back to back. The algo gets worn out is the simplest way I like to say it. And so it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So rather than post back to back, space it out. Maybe you have 3 or 4 hours in between your posts. Some of the best content creators that I know, they only post one a day. And so again, it comes down to the quality of your post, not the quantity. I suggest if you're going to be aggressive that you do post at least once a day, and you could skip a day here and there, but post once a day, but don't overpost. So pace yourself. The other big giant mistake I see people make is including links in your post. I used to make this mistake all the time.
Yes.
Think about it from LinkedIn's perspective. If you put a link, pardon the pun there, in the post, that's welcoming people to leave LinkedIn. They don't want that. So in order to avoid that, put it in the comment section. If you have a link you want to share, put it in the comment section. And if you really want to have the image that you would get if you put the link in the post, put the link in the post so you can see that image, take a screenshot of the image, then make that an image post, but then again, put the link in the comments. The other big mistake I see people make is a similar thing. They think that uploading or putting a link to their YouTube video is a smart idea, when in reality, LinkedIn likes native, organic content. So if you have a video, upload the video natively. Don't just share the YouTube link. And speaking of sharing, it doesn't like it when you share other people's posts. It likes it when you create new content. So sharing posts, don't expect those to get much engagement. I'll share 2 other things and then we can move on. One is hashtags. So hashtags, they're not all created equally, meaning some hashtags have millions and millions of followers. Some have a few hundred or a few thousand. And you might think that personal development, personal growth, they probably have the same number of followers. No, one has like 6,000, one has like 13 million. I may be off on the numbers, but you get the point. And so use hashtags that have high follower counts. The last thing I'll share is the concept of tagging. I suggest to tag in the comments, not in the post, and be selective with how many people you tag. Don't tag like 50 people. The algo doesn't like it when you tag 50 people and only 5 actually end up coming back and making a comment on your post. So be sure the people you tag will actually come visit your posts.
All right. So let's talk about potting, because that's what we're talking about here when you start putting people in. I know there are quite a few people that do it to boost their engagement. I do it from time to time, but I don't, you can call it potting, you can call it tagging, but I think potting has to deal with a little more of a detailed strategy where everybody within that pod is going to like somebody. You all agree that you're going to like that post, and then you're going to like my post, and you're going to like that person's post that's within the pod, right? Is that how that works?
Yep.
Which I know, many people are for it and many people are against it, including our friend Adam Posner, who's very much against it. I am kind of in the middle, but I do think that it does work from time to time when you want that boost. I think for someone that does it all the time, I do think it's got to hurt it's got to hurt the algorithm on you a little bit if that's all you're doing on a consistent basis, doesn't it?
Yeah. So this is a great topic, and it is controversial because there are different viewpoints. My personal viewpoint on it is I'm not vehemently opposed to them like Adam is, but I would probably be more in Adam's camp than not. Meaning, I don't think I think they can add engagement, they can add likes, they can add comments, and they do what is helpful for a post. But what I found when I was involved and when I used them was I was ending up liking and commenting on people's posts that I otherwise wouldn't be. And so I think it's better to be really actively engaged in the community that is most tethered to who you are. So for me, I'm a podcaster, I'm a LinkedIn guy, so I'm in that community, and I love leadership, so I'm in like a leadership thing. So if you have people that you want to share posts with that are in that space, great. But I think getting in a pod that is all over the map and where you feel obligated to like and comment on dozens, if not hundreds of other people's posts, I think it could get overwhelming for one. And I think it could change your algorithm. So you're seeing posts that maybe you're not as into. And so I think if you're going to do it, just be very smart with who you're engaging with, be very selective with who are the people that you're going to be in a pod with. I think honestly, the best strategy and the best approach is be as active as you can outside of a pod. And if you want to use the pod to kind of accelerate things, fine. And I know a lot of people do it. Some of the best content creators on the platform use them. So I don't want to boo-hoo them and just say that they're evil. I think there's
not evil
value in them, but I think don't do them in lieu of building a network and being involved in a community that is not related to that pod, because I think what that's going to inevitably do is help create a feed that you like and that you want to comment more on. And then all of a sudden they comment more on your post, and it creates this reciprocal relationship, which is really what LinkedIn is all about. It's about learning from other people in fields that you have interest in. And so the more you can do that, the more you're going to create a fire in that realm. And so it all starts with kindling though, right? So you got to build the fire with the kindling. The kindling are your comments, it's your building relationships. And then as you do that, the more fuel you add is the content. So the more you add that content, the more that fire begins to roar.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that the key thing for I know for a lot of the users and like for the job seekers that I deal with, it's very much about starting slow. And yeah, sure, you can copy me and a few other people who are active on LinkedIn. I think that's the best way to do it. I think when you definitely do it in the comments, you're definitely going to do a lot better. I know I was guilty of tagging people on the initial comments and actually found that it actually hurts you more than helped you. Because again, it's it's almost you're taking the attention away from the content of the post by tagging other people. So I think the point about putting as much extra content as you want in the comments, whether that be a link external to LinkedIn. Now, for things like LinkedIn events, if you create a LinkedIn event, you can put that link in the body of the post because it's tied to LinkedIn, because it's not taking us away from the platform, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Again, it's a black box, so we don't know for sure. But I think just using logic, the thing to think about is, what would LinkedIn want? Would LinkedIn want to keep you on the platform? Yeah, and that's a way to keep people on the platform, as opposed to an outside external link that's taking you off the platform. So stands to reason that they're going to be more favorable of links that will keep you within the platform than outside of the platform.
Absolutely. So I think this has been some great conversation. We actually did pretty well on LinkedIn today. Because I opened up my LinkedIn browser just to see what was going on, if there were any questions that weren't coming over. And we didn't really have a ton of questions. So I'll say if you have questions, now's the time, because we're going to wrap up the broadcast here. Because I generally like to go about 45 minutes on this. So if people want to get in touch with you, obviously LinkedIn is definitely one way to do it. Yes, I did correct your name on there. What other ways can people check out your stuff and get in touch with you? Do you have like a website or anything like that?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So yes, so it's billysamoa.com is the website. And then I also have Insight Out is my podcast. You can find it on all major podcast platforms. And I'm starting a new podcast called For the Love of Podcasts. And it's a podcast about podcasts and podcasters, where we dive in and talk about the world of podcasting and what helped them be successful. So I'm launching that show in August, but I'm going to be posting a lot of content on podcasting for anyone interested. And I did want to share one other thing just real quick with regards to content, because I think it's important, and I don't want to leave this one. When you think of content, remember that you're competing against a ton of other people when you post your content. And so how do you create something that's going to stop the scroll? And so when you post your content, focus on 4 different areas. The first area is you got to hook them with a compelling opening line that is going to grab their attention. The second thing you want to do is tell a story. People relate to stories. The third thing you want to do is provide that value that I mentioned earlier. And then the fourth thing you want to do is have a call to action. And the call to action is inspiring them to make a comment on your post. Maybe you ask a question. Maybe you just simply ask them to make a comment. You ask them if they agree, something that's going to get them excited about adding their opinion on your about your post. And so I wanted to share that because I think that's a really important part of the overall equation. And so, but yeah, if anyone's interested, I'd love to connect with you here on LinkedIn. Please send me a DM and let's connect. And Michael, super grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation, and looking forward to more.
Absolutely, no doubt. And I look forward to seeing more of your content out there, and definitely sharing it with the world to get you more viewers and listeners. And it's just great the stuff that you've been able to do within a year. And that's I think that says a lot, that this thing can be stood up pretty quickly. You just have to have someone like Billy who can help you get you started. And I think for what you're doing, I think it's wonderful. So hey man, I appreciate you. I wish you hope all you and your family are doing well. Did you have a nice Father's Day? I never asked.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I love that picture of you holding up your kid. I don't know if you saw. Did you see my comment that I made? I said holding mine is, he's 18, 6'4".
Yes, I did see that. I did see that. Oh my
So
goodness.
as much as I'd love to let, I mean, because I have pictures of me, just raising like I'd break my back now.
You're right. Well, happy Father's Day
Yeah.
to you, man. And
Well, thanks,
no,
man.
I did see that. You gave me a good chuckle. It's funny because after I did that, I tried throwing my son up, and I did it, but it scared him. He's 8 now, so he's a bit bigger. He's like, "Why are you throwing me in the air?" Because I mean, when he was littler, I would do that, no problem, and I actually could do it. He's still small enough where I could throw him up, but like I said, took him by surprise.
Surprises are always good, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the way I look at it. So, well, hey, man, to the audience out there, thanks again. Thanks for everybody that tuned in. If you're trying to get in touch with me on my cell phone, you can't until after probably 6 o'clock today. Just hit me up on email at michael@hiringtransform.com or through LinkedIn direct messaging. But as this pandemic starts to rear its ugly head again, stay inside. If you got to go outside, wear a mask, be protective, stay 6 to 8 feet apart, and let's really start preventing this thing from catching on like it did a couple of months ago. So appreciate you, and we'll be talking at you soon.